This is by far the most bizarre deportation case that I have come across as a Texas journalist. Jermaine Thomas was born to a U.S. citizen soldier father on a U.S. Army base in a U.S. Army hospital in Germany where his father was deployed at the time. Because he was born abroad, he did not get U.S. citizenship. Actually, he was at the center of a case brought before the United States Supreme Court about that very issue, asking the question, should babies born on U.S. Army bases abroad be U.S. citizens? The Supreme Court decided not to take that case. Last week, he says that he was escorted by ICE agents onto a plane with his wrists and ankles shackled, and he was deported to Jamaica, a country that he had never been to in his life.
I'm looking out the window on the plane. I'm hoping the plane crashes and I die.
His story is bizarre from start to finish, and I can't tell you all of the details in this video, but I am just going to get some of the highlights. So Jermaine's dad was born in Jamaica, but served in the U.S. military for 18 years, got his U.S. citizenship, and renounced his Jamaican citizenship. Jermaine has a social security number. He works as a janitor in the U.S. He lives in Central Texas. He was in Killeen at the time that he was arrested. He was evicted from his apartment, and to move out quickly, not knowing where he would go next, he put all of his stuff in the lawn. He also had his dog Sassy, and he took her leash and tied it to a pole. Somebody called the police because of the dog being tied to the pole. When the police came, they took the dog, and then they also arrested him for suspected criminal trespassing because he was on the lawn of this place that he no longer lived. I don't know if that criminal trespassing charge would have held up in court, but what happened was he didn't go to court. He went to jail, and after being in jail for about a month, he signed some papers to be released with conditions, but instead of being released, he was brought to an ICE detention camp. He says that his deportation officer told him repeatedly he had a unique case, and it was out of her hands, and it was out of the hands of Texas, and it was in the hands of Washington, D.C., whatever that means. But he ended up being in this detention camp for 2.5 months. He's lost his job as a janitor, he isn't able to pay any of his bills, and he also hasn't seen his family.
If I don't have a release date and I don't get to see the judge, that's pretty much a life sentence.
So he calls the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Inspector General, and he's like, hey, I think something's wrong here. Shortly after that, a deportation officer says, hey, get your stuff together, put it in this mesh bag, you're gonna be released. And he's like, great, and they take him to a room, and he finds himself in this room with a bunch of people who seem to only speak Spanish.
One or two of us spoke broken English, and I asked them, I said, where y'all going? They say, Nicaragua. So I get to banging on the door, and I'm like, hey, why am I in here?
So after getting out of this almost being deported to Nicaragua situation, even at the airport in Miami where he's about to be deported, he told me it seemed like nobody knew what was going on, and he even said to them, hey, Google my name, there's a Supreme Court case about me. And he said specifically that some officers told him that they were trying to Google him, but they didn't have good enough service. Anyway, he ends up on this plane, deported to Jamaica. He said when he landed in Jamaica, everybody just got off the plane all at once. But he didn't, because he was like, they need to figure out what's going on and send me back. He's not even sure if it's legal for him to be there. He's not a Jamaican citizen, he doesn't have a passport, and he doesn't have a visa to be in Jamaica either.
Why the Andrew Holness government or any receiving government might allow someone like Jermaine Thomas, who says he has no Jamaican citizenship, to be deported to Jamaica. 1. Deportation agreements and bilateral cooperation. Jamaica, like many countries, has bilateral agreements with the United States to accept deportees who are believed to be of Jamaican descent. If the United States government submits travel documents claiming someone was born to a Jamaican parent, the Jamaican government may accept them even without conclusive proof of citizenship. Jermaine Thomas's father was born in Jamaica, and that may have been enough for ICE to argue that Jamaica should receive him even if Thomas never claimed Jamaican citizenship or held a Jamaican passport. 2. Weak documentation and appeals process. In many deportation cases, stateless individuals or people with unclear citizenship status get caught in bureaucratic gaps. They may be wrongly presumed to have citizenship in a country just because of parentage. Receiving countries like Jamaica sometimes don't rigorously verify those claims, especially under U.S. pressure or to maintain diplomatic relationships. 3. Lack of a stateless person protection policy in Jamaica. Jamaica does not have a comprehensive legal framework for dealing with stateless persons. That means there is no formal process for determining statelessness. There is no guaranteed protection against being arbitrarily received or refused entry. As a result, a person can be dropped into Jamaica without any clarity on their legal status, as appears to have happened with Thomas. 4. The role of appearance and assumptions. There is often an unspoken racialized element. Deportees who are black and whose family has Caribbean roots may be sent to places like Jamaica even when legal status is murky. As Thomas himself put it may be he's only there because of his appearance. So why is the Andrew Holness government allowing this? Political pressure and limited leverage. Jamaica, a smaller country with close ties to the United States, may feel pressure to comply. Deportation demands. Refusing deportees can create diplomatic friction, especially if the United States has already issued what it considers a valid deportation order. Assuming Thomas is Jamaican based on limited or incomplete data from ICE. Not wanting to challenge U.S. deportation policy or disrupt diplomatic norms. Not having internal legal tools to push back on receiving potentially stateless individuals. Lack of political will to stand up for people who aren't formal citizens, even if they have Jamaican roots.